Sheldon Silver back in court for his corruption trial after a recess yesterday for Veterans Day. Our Dominic Carter, he is live at the courthouse with all the drama. Then, cops and firemen are only getting 1 to 2% raises this year, but the New York City Council could be actually giving itself a 71% pay hike. That story, maybe for some, too bad to be true. Also, are people already racing to replace Mayor Bill de Blasio? Well, former police commissioner Ray Kelly just might be on that list. We have the latest. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We're going to start tonight with the Sheldon Silver corruption trial. Today, the feds moved on to the second part of their case, whether Silver failed to disclose income on federal disclosure forms. And just about an hour ago, our Dominic Carter, he saw one Preet Bharara walking into the courthouse. And John Lloyd is live from that courthouse in Foley Square. Dominic?
Well, Richard, I got to tell you, it was just a short time ago. I'm in the courtroom waiting for the judge to recess the case for the night, and I happened to look to my left. That's where the entrance is for this courtroom. It's a small courtroom on the 4th floor. To the right of it is the jury box. And as I looked to the left, I saw a man walk in surrounded by aides, and he happened to have on a blue shirt, a red tie, and a crisp suit. It happened to be the U.S. Attorney, Preet Bharara himself. This is the second time that he has made it into the courtroom, and perhaps it's a reflection, Richard, that his case may not be going exactly the way that he expects it to go. Let me be clear. A conviction here is far from a slam dunk against Sheldon Silver after being in this courtroom for several days. Very interesting. I walked up to Mr. Bharara as court came to a close. He just looked and smiled. I said, can I talk to you about the case? Do you have a comment? His brief answer was no. And we were not able to get a shot of him because the cameras are not allowed inside federal court. And his office as the U.S. Attorney has a connection via the building. So he's able to go and come without being seen by the public. As you said, Richard, this case against Mr. Silver, it comes down to two areas. And earlier today, we saw the feds switch to the second topic. Mr. Silver, interesting night. At about 10 after 5, the U.S. Attorney himself, Preet Bharara, stood in the back of the courtroom. Do you find that intimidating, or what do you think about that?
I'm not intimidated by it. I think ultimately I'll be vindicated in this case, and that's the important fact that will come out of this case.
Some have said that the government's case, it doesn't look all that it's cracked out to be.
I believe that ultimately I'll be vindicated, and that's all I can tell you at this time. We'll try the case in the courtroom, and as it comes out, that's the way it'll come out.
Can I just ask your defense counsel one quick question right here? If I could ask him to come up. In your opening statement, you told jurors that the government does not like that friends might do favors for friends. Elaborate, please.
Mr. Silver is going to be vindicated at the end of the trial.
Period?
Period.
What do you think about Preet Bharara coming in the courtroom?
Mr. Silver is going to be vindicated.
Richard, on the stand, a law partner, Sarah Iyami, from a law firm that specializes in obtaining real estate tax reductions. The point being hammered home by the feds is Silver collected millions in legal fees and did little work for that money. But the question remains, that does not appear to be illegal. Iyami, granted immunity from prosecution by the feds, testified that her firm made $2.6 million and paid Mr. Silver 25% of that. This is important, Richard, because the feds allege Silver failed to include the payments on a federal disclosure form. But again, Richard, the meat of the case against Sheldon Silver involves another $3 million. The feds say he allegedly ran an illegal scheme. Prosecutors charge medical patient referrals were made to Silver in the capacity of a lawyer by Columbia University cancer doctor Robert Taub in exchange for $500,000 and 2 taxpayer-funded research grants. Federal District Court Judge Valerie Caproni told the jury at the beginning of the trial that the government must prove that Silver, quote, received things of value in the form of bribes or kickbacks, and that he knew when he accepted those things, he was expected in exchange to take official action as the opportunity rose. So, Richard, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. The jury are the ones that's going to decide this case. But let me also tell you something else that happened late this afternoon, and this will not play well for Mr. Silver, and guaranteed it will be in the papers tomorrow morning. A social service organization known as OHEL, that's the acronym, if you will, for it. The executive director testified, Dr. Taub, the doctor in question, that his son needed a job. Sheldon Silver, according to the testimony, directly picked up the phone as Speaker of the Assembly and on Speaker letterhead and appealed for Dr. Taub's son to get a job. The tabloids will probably have a field day with that one tomorrow, but this case, again, Richard, it is far from a slam dunk for the prosecution. That is it for now, Richard. Let's go back to you.
Thank you very much, Dominic. All right, let's get into it with our panel right now. And also, we're going to talk about, which was part of the original testimony, the seemingly unilateral power of the purse when it came to state health grant money, whether it's legal or not. It does talk about questions about where is the discretion right now. In court on Monday, prosecutors focused on how much control Silver had over $500,000 in annual health grants, which they are trying to show Silver used, as you heard Dominic say, improperly, a quid pro quo, if you will. But even if it's not technically illegal, Silver certainly had a whole lot of money at his disposal and a lot of power over who it went to. The Times reporting that Silver's grant requests were suppressed in budget reports and that in all practical terms, Silver had nearly unilateral control over health-related member items and where that money went. Let me bring in our panel right now. Richard Brodsky is a former Democratic New York State Assemblyman, now a senior fellow at Demos and a professor at NYU. I'm sure he'll have something to say. Republican strategist Bill O'Reilly joins us as well here. Ellis Hennigan, a columnist for Newsday and a political analyst, and so much more. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. All right, let's get right into this one, Richard, which is forget about where the trial is at the moment right now. One of the things we learned in testimony, whether it's illegal or not, it's a separate issue. Member items and the discretion any speaker, forget about Shelley Silver, any speaker has, or for that matter, I guess the Senate Majority Leader would have, in terms of where that monies go. They made it clear, basically they rubber stamped what he wanted to do. When he got the funds, he had the discretion who he gave it to, for how much, in what buckets.
Complete discretion pursuant to law, either through the budget process or memoranda of understanding that the governor and the Senate approved. It's legal, but it's not a good system. If you don't mind my saying it, you can't just now sort of say, doesn't matter whether it's legal or illegal.
Well, we'll figure that out, but I don't want you to get it into where I know you're going to try and take me here that, hey, look what happened in the first few days of the trial. What I'm trying to do is say, for the regular person at home, the taxpayer, to say, is my money being A, well used, and do we have the transparency there? Okay. As a non-leadership member, right, were you ever frustrated that leadership was doing things and you had no idea where it was going?
Well, on the money stuff, yes, it's a bad system. But let's be clear, it is reviewed. Both the controller and the AG signed off on the grants. And B, no one has ever said that the money that Shelley directed towards Taub was badly spent. It was used.
No, the question is whether he was enriched as a result.
Which I'm not allowed to talk about right now. I understand.
You do what you want here, but
I understand what the rules are.
Well,
look,
we hear a lot about three men in the room: the Senate President, the Speaker, who was Shelley Silver in this case, and the Governor. If they come to an agreement, and it's Shelley, you're going to be able to use this amount of money and distribute it through member items. You really think the AG and the Controller are really going to put that much of a discerning eye on that, or are they just going to say, like, go ahead, this is part of the deal, Shelley gets what he wants?
They have an oath of office to maintain. They've been attorney generals of different parties.
But there's a difference between the oath of office and how things really work.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone's a liar in the chief. Where's Dominic when you need him?
I'm channeling Dominic for you tonight.
Okay, look, there's a lot going on.
Don't act like this is like, how dare anybody be cynical of the system, Richard? I mean, you have to live under a rock for the last year to say what's going on.
You're testifying and asking.
Absolutely.
There are real problems with transparency. There are real problems with the amount of power that's been had. This man, however, is being tried for, as you heard the judge say,
Yes.
an exchange. The key witness said there was no exchange. There's
I think that's very convenient retelling of the facts. We
Wait a
had the
minute.
emails, Ellison. I'll let you get into it, but just so anybody missed it, and they were presented at trial, the emails certainly portrayed a picture here where he didn't want to tick off Shelley Silver, which in his words was the most powerful man in New York State. He also did a proverb here where he says, as the Bible, he says, we need to get past the time when each man goes as is righteous in his own eyes. Usually success is propelled by greed, envy. You're not going to let me say it. I'll say it again. Greed, envy, or both. I thought you knew that when he was talking about
When he was asked if there was an exchange, what did he say?
He said no, not
No
a formal
further
one.
questions.
But the implication was pretty clear.
I got something after you.
Quick.
Go ahead.
Well, can I do the common sense thing here?
Please.
Listen. Far be it for me to defend Shelley Silver. I mean,
You're
he's not
channeling
someone
Dominic now.
I've,
Yeah, go
I've
ahead, yes.
particularly embraced over the years. And no doubt Richard is right. The funding processes in Albany are a cesspool, right? Let's concede all of that. And 3 guys in the room is bad until you meet the other members of the legislature. And then you think, well, maybe those 3 guys can
Safe
work
present
it out.
company. Safe present company.
But that said, it seems to me there are 2 things going on here, right? There's a disclosure issue, and he may well have a problem on the disclosure issue. Either he put that on the form or he didn't. He's supposed to do it. But the question of whether the grants are legitimate, and seemingly, I mean, this is a researcher at Columbia University. I mean, there's a lot of worse people you can be giving money to than Tao, right?
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, the notion that there is something unusual or untoward about an attorney taking money for sending a case, an injury case, right, to a plaintiff's firm. That is the way the legal business in America works.
Here's my only point of dispute with you, and it's only one. Referrals are a part of every law firm that there is. I got no
Absolutely.
problem with it. However, when the person who's making the referral and getting it enriched as a result is the same person who's using taxpayer money to go give to the clinic for them to do a study, and then the doctor's referring clients back, and that you're making $3 cool million and you're not doing any
And
legal work on it.
as soon as you can show me proof.
Proof, right.
Not belief, not assumption. Proof, you've got a criminal
There wasn't
case.
anybody you could give that grant money to where everybody invested wasn't going to make money in the
know,
process? I
there's-
mean,
Of course they will.
Andrew, there's an old expression in Albany which is never write what you can say, never say what you can wink. And in Shelley Silver's case, he's smart enough to wink all the time. In the Skelos case that comes up later, they talked on wiretaps. In this case, we don't know at this point. It doesn't look like the
But come
hard
back to
evidence
me
is
for a
there.
second, Bill, and take Republican and Democrat
I
enough,
am.
because God knows there's enough bipartisan mess here to go around for everybody. Even by somebody who is obviously as jaded as you are from over the years of seeing what goes on, were you even surprised by the numbers we were talking about in this and the seemingly, and maybe it's not going to be proven to be something that they'll be able to secure a conviction out of, but just from the BS test here, it looks awful. Were you even surprised about how seemingly non-transparent it was, but just how they felt so casually to do this almost out in the
I
open?
wasn't surprised whatsoever.
That's terrible.
Absolutely no surprise whatsoever.
500,000?
It's
Not that much money. in
No, not
Albany.
the 5. I'm talking about the
3
3 to
million.
4 mil that went in his pocket.
Everybody knew he was making a lot of money.
When we started,
It doesn't matter if it's public money.
You know what?
You're supposed to be a public servant. You're not supposed to be pocketing 3 mil.
I'm not going to defend a system that has plenty of things
You
wrong
sure
with
sound like it,
but
my
I'm
friend.
going to insist that you and your ilk, which I used to
By
put
the
you
way,
in that.
this is Richard. One day in the media, the next day out. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Distinguish
Those people, yeah.
between what it means to send someone to jail and what it means to say we have a system that needs to work.
You threw my disclaimer out. I tried in the beginning to say we're not going to convict right now.
failed on the
or
grounds of
acquit.
insincerity.
we've been looking at this trial from 2 points of view ever since the charges were first announced: the guilt or innocence of Shelley Silver, and then the guilt or innocence of the Albany system in total. And Shelley Silver, the verdict obviously isn't in yet. We're going to wait and find out whether he's able to be convicted. But it seems to me like Albany's guilty as sin, and I don't think anybody at the table is arguing otherwise. This confirms all of the suspicions that we had about how bad the system was.
I have a simple question for you, and I joke around, but I know more than anybody, you'll take the difficult position of defending an institution that too often is defined by its worst members, okay? Because you believe in the institution and you believe in public service. That's the last compliment I'm going to give you, okay? But I genuinely believe you
first.
do. However, do you agree what should the public's expectation be of its representatives and its leadership?
That the money be
that they should, no, is this something we should accept?
What is this?
That anybody, a speaker, a majority leader, anybody in leadership, or for that matter, any member, is going to be able to enrich themselves directly through their office?
The answer to the question is he denies that's what happened. That's what the criminal trial is about.
Okay, he can deny it, and maybe we don't have to email that will prove it, but give me a break.
The give me a break standard
How about for
may
you?
work for television, but the give me a
It
break
works really well on
standard
television. I
is
agree with
not
you.
what you send someone to jail on. I share your skepticism, not your miserable cynicism.
God, Captain Sunshine
about
there.
about
All right.
this. But the Albany system is, by the way, in the end, on the big issues, school aid, health care, not corrupt. And that the fact that there are corrupt people in it is not a license to paint the system
I'll
as
tell you only
just
one thing,
happened.
and I'll get the last word on this one. The worst indictment of all of Albany will be, at the end of the day, if what he did is legal and okay. That will be the worst indictment
Absolutely.
of what our government will give us, at least in the state of New
And
York.
by the way, Preet, who's in the courtroom there with Dominic, he's not done with Shelley Silver.
I don't think, I
And
think
there
you're
may be
absolutely
some
right.
other targets as well coming.
When we come back here, you think there's a debate there? How about this one? Wages are pretty much stagnant, but not if you're on the New York City Council, potentially. Those guys could be getting, I'm not talking a raise, but a massive one, and you'd be paying for them. And you may be surprised. I don't necessarily think it's the worst idea going. We'll be right back.